Teachers, what's the worst thing a kid brought for show and tell? My dad tells a story about when he brought his dad's bird hunting shotgun and ammo to school for show and tell. It was rather uneventful. My grandpa walked out to the bus with him and told the bus driver that he was taking it in for show and tell. Dad got to school, put the gun in his locker, and went and got it when it was time for show and tell. He put it back in his locker after the presentation, then took it home on the bus. Very different times. Wasn't show and tell, but once during morning break while I was a student teacher, two 6-year-olds came to find the class teacher in the staff room. They had something to show her. She came back with pictures. These boys had found half a dead and decomposed hedgehog and decided to pick it up and put it on her desk. Needless to say, hands were thoroughly washed and drenched in sanitizer. My brother found a scorpion at our house and captured it to bring for show and tell. The scorpion got out somehow and the teacher had everyone on high alert to look for it and capture it. Several children returned to the teacher having found the scorpion. That was the day we found out our school was infested with scorpions. For everyone asking, this was when we lived in Alabama. In my school, some kid brought in his collection of laundry rocks, which were crumpled up pieces of paper that he put in his pockets, and when his mom did the laundry they would turn hard like rocks. He said he did it by accident once, liked it, and started deliberately putting crumpled paper in his pockets to make more. My best friend in grade school brought a huge hunting knife one day. He missed a week of school and my parents didn't let me hang out with him anymore after that. He ended up becoming an ump in MLB and always gave out tickets to his buddies. Thanks Mom and Dad. I like free tickets too. Stop asking who it is. I'm not doxing my old friend from grade 4 who kept his shit together. Maybe because I grew up in the South and around folks hunting. But I don't see why your parents wouldn't let you hang out with him anymore for this. A hunting knife doesn't mean he's trouble. It's understandable that bringing the knife to school is bad and they would most likely be expelled here too, but I am surprised the parents would think a young kid non-violently possessing a hunting knife is a bad kid, because he most likely just thinks it's cool and has no ill intentions. It would be a different story if he had actually done something destructive or hurtful with it. I taught 5th grade in a school with really rich kids and really low-income kids bussed in. One of the low-income kids brought a coconut for her show and tell about Trinidad, where her dad was from. She cracked it open. It was completely rotten inside and smelled awful. I was so worried about the kid being embarrassed. But then one of the rich kids, who was also of a pretty low intellect, looked at it with wide eyes and said it's like the earth, the core, the mantle and the crust, which is something I think he had never really understood before, so it actually turned out pretty well. Not a teacher, but there was a girl in my brother's year whose dad owned a junk salvage place. Girl brings in an old thermometer. Okay, cool, whatever. She then goes, and then this is the most fun part, and proceeds to smash the thermometer on the desk and play with the mercury. How that got resolved, but I do know that by the time I got to 1st grade, we no longer had show and tell. When I was in 6th grade, I took a belly dancing bralette thing in that my brother sent me from his deployment. We were studying the Middle East and I had something from there. I thought it was cool. I remember my teacher gulping, eyes bulging, asking, "Just that's all they wear?" And me saying, "Yeah, I guess so." Anyways, it turns out he sent me his girlfriend's present and his girlfriend got my camel book. But I was very, very popular with the 6th grade boys for a little while. My mom got in trouble for bringing in a piece of an empty beehive she found. She'd stored it in the freezer just to be extra safe, but she thought it would be cool for us kids to bring in for show and tell. The head teacher was pissed though because kids could possibly have bee allergies. It was stored in a plastic box, so kind of unfair that they were mad about it. One of my classmates had a deer leg in his locker. This was in middle school, so I don't think it was a show and tell. It apparently wasn't there a while because it started to smell, which was how it was found. This kid wasn't stupid or on an abnormal amount of drugs and went on to a good career in the army. His goals were beyond my understanding. When I was in 5th grade and going to school in As, this girl in our class brought in a glass jar with a tarantula and a black widow. No clue how she caught both in one day, or why. Within an hour the tarantula was dead and upside down in the jar. Same day there was a fire drill and yep, someone knocked it off her desk and the jar broke, releasing the black widow. We never found it, but the teacher made sure to stomp the dead tarantula just in case. Same thing happened with our glass fire ant farm in 2nd grade. Now that I think about it, I don't know why people kept bringing this shit into school, or why our teachers let them. I too brought a large jar of dock or raft spiders to show and tell. Altaf, these large spiders are not poisonous to humans. They have one nasty bite and are pretty aggressive. Oh, and they are cannibals. I only learned this when the 10 spiders I caught became only 4 the next morning before my show and tell. I was pretty bummed out because it took a lot of effort to A. reach the spiders living in the rafters of the dock house by the lake and B. catch them without getting bitten. Why bring them? I was really into bugs, wanted to share my passion. Even now, I have a worm farm in the garage for fishing. I brought rattlesnake to school in a mason jar that my father killed directly by our front door. I was 6, took to show my class. After the teacher let me show everyone and we discussed it, she stuck it in closet so we would all calm back down. Completely forgotten about, and we had a 3-day weekend. We had to have class in the gymnasium for 3 days. This happened to my backpack after I brought some of my taxidermy collection for show and tell in kindergarten, and I left all the little legs and hooves in my backpack for weeks. My dad's a big hunter and I was a weird kid who didn't know how weird my family was. Okay, the smell is very distinctive and impossible to wash out. Lol. Had a kid age 6-7 who had a lot going on, but part of it was that he was a compulsive liar with absolutely no sense of when a lie was so poorly constructed that everyone would know. Every single day he would say he had something for show and tell. Most days we didn't have time for his show and tell, but every so often we kind of had to let him have a go. He'd stand up, ready to do his show and tell, then wander over to my desk, browse for a minute, pick up the most random crap, a post-it note, a sharpener, once it was the custom well done stamp that actually had my name on it, and then say some poorly constructed story about how he found it in Africa when he went there for tea yesterday with his auntie or some such. He'd get really upset if he realized nobody believed him, though even at that age, most of the kids had the tact, or gullibility, to just smile and nod. Not a teacher. But when I was in 5th grade, my friend brought a metal hip replacement piece from a human body that her father had cremated and kept. It was for what would you like to do when you grow up, sort of show and tell. She wanted to be a mortician like her dad. What's worse is that she allowed for this piece to be passed around the class before telling everyone, including the teacher, what it was. Chaos ensued afterwards. When I was in 2nd grade, I brought this multi-tool thing from a nearby aquarium. It had stuff like binoculars, a compass, a mirror, and I think 1 or 2 extra gadgets. It was cool because each part of it folded back nicely. The binoculars were ingenious. Anyway, the only word 2nd grade me knew how to describe it was pocket knife, and my teacher had a panic attack and wouldn't let me show it. My mom was a teacher. I didn't live with her, but I would occasionally go help her move stuff around, hang stuff up, clean, just help with her room. Occasionally, I'd bring a friend or two. We were in high school. My sister, 6, attended the school that our mother taught at. One day my mom called and asked if I'd come by with the 2 friends that I usually brought. We showed up about 20 minutes later. Without explaining, my mother sent us to my sister's classroom. We knocked, walked in, and my sister yelled, "My show and tell is here. These are my brothers. They are funny." I am so lucky to be friends with these 2 guys to this day. Without hesitation, they started an age-appropriate Three Stooges routine. One climbed onto the other's shoulders. They juggled school supplies, pretended to trip each other, made funny noises. I barely played a role. My sister's class was continuous roar of laughter. Even the teacher was crying. She asked us to stop, leave, because she didn't want kids passing out from laughing. I'll never forget my sister's little face. looking so proud, haha. Sorry for straying the prompt, but that's the only show and tell I can remember. 2nd grade. A kid brought a Marlboro hard pack full of bullets. Later that year one had to confiscate a baseball cap from him. It was a 420 marijuana cap with the brim signed by ICP. I told him his parents could come and get it. I still have it. He was a sweet little guy. But one day a kid teased him about his dad being in gaol and he silently beat the kid till I pulled him off. Not a teacher, but as an elementary school kid. Not anymore lol. We were supposed to bring toy animals from home and tell why we picked or liked that animal. Most kids brought stuffed animals or action figures, but this one madland of a girl brought a real-life bearded dragon. She brought it in a plastic bag and just whipped it out and flopped it on the table when it was her turn. The teacher, female and usually very chill, freaked out and called her parents to come get the beast. A few minutes later her dad, Russian, steps into the room and you could see in his face that he didn't understand what the problem was with the bearded dragon. The teacher freaked out again and talked to him how it could have gone on a rampage and could have bitten someone and how it's animal cruelty to transport a live animal in a regular one-time use plastic bag. The dad realized that she was super scared and overreacting, so he just said, "Excuse me madam," with a thick Russian accent, took the bag and walked out. The whole time his face didn't show any emotion at all, as if that type of stuff happens to him all day. The girl was the hero of the day and she somehow didn't get into any trouble because it actually was her dad's idea. BTW im German, so PLS excuse any spelling mistakes, smiles. Not a teacher and not the weirdest thing, but it's funny. I was in 4th grade and I called my grandpa since he lived close by to go to my house, unbeknownst to my parents that were at work, to pick up this beaded necklace that my dad told me he got from a monk in Vietnam for show and tell. Months later during a parent-teacher conference the teacher mentioned my dad being in Vietnam and the item I brought in. My mom was very confused and had to tell him that my dad was never in Vietnam. She had a laugh about it when she realized this was one of my dad's stories. He knew I was gullible and would always tell me weird stories about him, like getting shot with arrows. The wound scars he had were from getting moles removed. He got a kick out of it but never thought I'd share these stories with other people. I'm late to the party and this wasn't show and tell, but I think this fits. It's one of my best first-year teaching stories. I was teaching kindergarten at the time and my class was a hot mess with behaviors. One of my frequent flyer girls was repeatedly going to her backpack and a couple of other girls were joining her in a huddle at the back of the room. After calling them back to reading rotations a couple times, I quietly walked up behind the group and asked, "Jamantha, what you got in your backpack?" Well, the other two girls looked shocked and Jamantha burst into tears, which was a terrible sign. I shoo the others away and ask a random para who happened to be helping. Normally I had no other adults in the room, to read something on the carpet while I asked this girl WTF was going on. She said her pet bunny in her backpack and I asked, foolishly hoping, like, a stuffed bunny? Number, a real bunny. So I look inside and lo and behold she has a baby rabbit in her backpack. So I pick up the bag, take her arm and say, "Okay hon, let's get this to the office." She is sobbing and yelling that they're going to take her bunny away and I say if it's really her pet her mom will put it back in its pen at home. Spoiler alert, totally not her pet. Well, I walk into the office and announce there is a baby rabbit in the backpack I'm holding, and when we look in again it is fucking dead. A dead wild baby rabbit. And at this point we don't know if it went into the backpack alive and died on the way to school or if she killed it or it was already dead, and either way it's all terrible. So we have to call animal control and parents and bring in every little girl who touched it because it was a wild animal and rabbits have all kinds of diseases. And we had to clear my classroom and spend the afternoon in the library finishing assessments because facilities needed to come and check my classroom for fleas and shit. But wait, there's more. When she's in the office, Jamantha is losing it and shouts out that yeah but Jessica has some too. Her older sister in 2nd grade had 2 more dead baby bunnies in her backpack. That class had to share the library with me. Apparently a bunch of baby rabbits had died on the family property and they were going to have a proper burial that night, but the kids snuck them out of the shoebox in the garage into their backpacks to show kids their pets. The parents thought it was funny. I'm excited to teach 4th grade next year. Names changed to protect the younglings. A school bag full of his own hair. To be fair, he didn't actually try to show and tell it. He almost brought in an action man. I noticed him and his best friend playing with the action man. They were putting something on its head. I went over to him and asked them what it was. It's hair. Hair? Where did it come from? It's Stevie's hair. He got it cut at the weekend. The child had a haircut, brought the clippings home, then put them in his school bag and brought them into school. That hair stayed in his school bag for a full week before his mother noticed. Not worst, but coolest, a student of mine brought in a taxidermed, stuffed bear from the shoulders up that his dad had killed with a bow. Best part was that his parents didn't know he brought it. He snuck it to school in a huge black garbage bag. A couple of years later he brought homing pigeons that he and his dad are raising and training and did a whole presentation with a headset mic and everything for the school. The whole family is full of the nicest and coolest people I've ever met. Easily one of my top 3 favorite families of all time. A teacher once made me the subject of a show and tell. My parents, for reasons understood only by them, thought it'd be a great idea to get raw, still in the husk, black walnuts by the bushel. Taking the husks off resulted in all of us getting our hands dyed a nice, deep walnut brown color. I guess it never occurred to anyone to wear gloves until it was too late. Salad. Show the class your hands and tell them all why they look that way. So humiliating to walk around with what looked like dirty hands and black fingernails for a week. I was the kid. It was probably around grade 4 or 5, so I would have been about 10-11. I got given a bullet as a gift. This was a massive bullet, although I'm not sure exactly what type though. Anyway, I brought it to school for show and tell. At recess I saw my teacher and decided to show her to ask if it was allowed. Her jaw dropped and she just stood there silent for a few seconds before saying no and telling me to put it away and leave it in my bag. Looking back, I'm surprised it didn't get taken off me or anything, lol. Not weird. I had brought my new puppy to show and tell back in 1st grade. She passed in 2019. A few of my classmates from 1st grade that I haven't even seen since 1st grade reached out and said they remembered the day I brought her in. Knew it wasn't much, but meant a lot. Edit. Wow, I did not expect this to get much attention, so thank you. Her name was Snowflake and she was the cutest yellow lab. I love you, Snow. My dad had a great show and tell story. He caught a big gardener snake. It was about 3 feet long from his telling, and was telling all his friends at school about it. The teacher told him to stop lying and he told her he wasn't lying. She then said fine, bring it in. My dad packed up this gardener snake in a big old jar but broke it on the way to school. He walks into class with this big snake in his hands. The teacher freaks out, jumps on her desk and is terrified of it. She sends him to the principal office. The principal was also a woman, who wouldn't let him in cause he was holding a big gardener snake. The principal called his mother, who simply responded with why did the teacher want him to bring it, and then, he ended up getting the day off school and didn't get in any other trouble from it. Not a teacher, but I remember a kid bringing in his hamsters. They were in a cage with tubes. I think there was like 4 in there. He got up and talked about how he liked hamsters and that he's had a bunch of them. He then proceeded to take one out, tell us its name, and out of nowhere he says, "Oh, and check this out." Then he held the hamster above his head for all to see and squished him. I caught some live salamanders in our basement to take to show and tell. I put them back when I got home. My dad had helped me do it. When Mom found out later, she went ballistic because she didn't want people to know that we had salamanders in our basement. It was an old farmhouse with a really damp cellar. It's actually really funny looking back at it now. Not a teacher, but when I was about 8 or 9 I brought a pill case containing mouse organs preserved in olive oil. Monday was the heart, Tuesday the liver. You get the idea. My cat had caught and killed the mouse. I confiscated it, and then our exchange student and I dissected it on the back porch. I swear neither of our are serial killers. We were both aspiring doctors, surgeons, and so thought it was super cool. My teacher did not agree, and my parents definitely got a call home. The happy end of the story is that our exchange student is now a cardiothoracic surgeon, so the mouse's sacrifice was not in vain.